Tools, special tools, typically homemade tools or special tools that you made and or use. And I've got the lathe set up here. If you want to demonstrate or show how you hook it up on the lathe or whatever, we got the lathe set up there.
Mine is mostly don't do this.
Okay, well, you want to do yours first then?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full negative knowledge. Go. What is that while lathe turning?
Did you guys see it over that side?
Stand back behind here.
Put the part
Yeah.
Jimmy, that's
Gives me something to lean against.
I do remember.
What's the picture?
See that?
Actually, you know, that-
Just CA. I have it. It's thin, but it's not that wide.
First of all, I guess I'm just plain cheap, but I have a bunch of bad files, so I made scrapers. This is a scraper for, and this works, and this I use. It's a scraper for putting the slope on there for your jaws on your thing. After making a lot of those, it finally dawned on me after somebody that I know suggested maybe, why you got it so damn long? And I thought about it and I thought, well, it is stupid.
That's how long the file is, right?
That's how long the file was. So I put it in the vise and smacked it, and now I make shorter ones. But that works. It's quick and easy for.
And you clean up your tool rest.
Yeah, same time.
Yeah, that's right.
What did you say you used that for? You said something about putting soap on the thing.
You mean in the chuck?
Dovetail.
The dovetail on for insert on your when you're inserting that.
Let me say something about the files. I don't remember who told me or when I told, but a long time ago I was told not to make any tools out of files.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they can snap and break little really sharp pieces off that can put an eye out or cut your face or whatever. So if you do decide to use those, don't hang them way off the tool rest and put a lot of stress on them.
Exactly.
I can comment on that.
I do wear glasses when I use it.
I can comment on that. The foul metal is very brittle stuff. If you were doing light shavings, that would be fine.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to dig it into a piece because it would snap.
No, and if it's a rough chunk like oak and all that.
On something
but I've never, that's just another one, doing the bottom of the bowl and going over.
Jerry, is that because it's got a high Rockwell hardness?
Yes.
extremely high, yeah. There's
Okay.
nothing you can get your hands on that's more brittle than that.
I think
The
most
point of interest though is I've only broken one tool, and that was a factory made bowl gouge, and that sucker snapped with just a minor catch.
Could have been a defect in the
Yeah, it was probably a defect in the steel.
broke out of the handle or snapped the metal?
It snapped about that far back.
That would have been a defect of some sort that
Yeah.
would cause that, a crack or something.
Back umpteen years ago, the club bought some, I think it was supposed to be M2 steel. Does anybody, this goes back to Ted Riggs when we were meeting there. And Bob Stewart and I got it, and we did all these, and we made them all up, and we must have done something wrong because they don't work worth a damn. I would not recommend doing this.
So you got too much overhang for the size of the metal. It just vibrates.
We copied a commercial one. But anyway.
Did you heat the steel to bend it?
Huh?
Did you heat the steel to bend it?
Yeah, then we heat treated it after.
No, you heat treated it?
Yeah, we brought it up to the temperature, bought a gallon of oil or,
What kind of steel is it?
it was supposed to be M2, I guess. But
I don't think
I'm not too sure this stuff was.
You can't heat treat M2 in the shop. No.
No.
You might be running carbon steel there, which is about like trying to turn with a nail.
Yeah, that's what we thought. We were sold cold rolled steel.
Yeah. If you're able to bend it that easily, it probably wasn't in there.
Yeah. And anyway, I found out Mark Soleil, I had a 1/4-inch gouge, and I says, "What good is this?" And he looked at it and he says, "That'd be good for hollowing out small vessels," and that's what I use. It works better. We made these, and they work. They're good. I needed a short one because I couldn't get the long one close enough to the wood.
Good thing about the round ones, they don't have sharp edges, so if you leave your tool on while you're moving the tool rest and you bump it into your work, you know, you don't have a cutting tool.
Yeah. This is probably the handiest thing, especially with my cheapy scrapers. You stick that in there and run your scraper off the end of it. That I use, like I said, I use that. I use these two scrapers. I made this, and I use it. And the only thing is, when sometimes I don't get too smart, and I even screw up this. But you know, when you do a recess in the bottom so you can turn it around and turn it, don't forget that that's a cavity inside there when you set it up and set that down there and set that. You forget that 1/4 of an inch, you come in for a big surprise. And this is my really be ashamed. I tried to make a chatter tool. I heard all you needed was a hacksaw blade and etc., etc. Somebody calmed me on that. That didn't work at all.
It's stuck in the handle too far.
No,
It needs to be hanging out.
I can vary it,
No.
and I did. Still didn't
Well,
work.
I got one bad at different
I got
distances.
one there that works.
Oh, yeah?
It's
Good.
technique. A spindle gouge can be a shatter tool.
Huh?
It's a matter of technique. A spindle gouge can be a shatter tool.
That's it. You're up.
Okay, who wants to go next then on the tools?
I did.
You stand there, Jack?
Okay.
Well, Jack's already ready here.
Well, I've got quite a few things here. One thing that was mentioned was the chatter tool. And Jane Bridges came by one day and brought the rod and wanted to make some chatter tools. And this part here is from a 1-inch wide bandsaw blade that I used. And to use this, we don't have a tool rest here.
Here's the box.
But you hang it off the tool rest like this. You get it like this, but you can change different amount of pressure on it. You can bend a little hook on it. You can sharpen it, and it works on end grain, not side grain. So you don't want to put it on the tool rest like this around. And those are easy to make, and you can make them any diameter you want. I did make one with one of these swimming pool noodles, but that foam does not hold up. It came apart. All right. On my vases that I do, thank you, I finish them on the lathe. If you stand them up, well, anyhow, if you stand them up and you got an odd shape and you're trying to spray it and trying to go around it, you're just about guaranteed to get a run. So by putting this on this way or this way, I can put the vase between centers, and I think most of you have seen my little craft ID that I put in the bottom of it. Well, I never glue that in until I'm totally finished with the vase. And until I glue that in, I've got a center point that I can put the vase here between center, and I can spray it this way as I'm running the lathe at this absolutely slowest speed, or turn it by hand. I don't get any runs, none. Because as it's constantly turning around, and because it's not a long shape this way with ins and outs, I can see what I'm doing when I'm spraying here, where if you put a vase on there, you got a vase on there and you're trying to spray it and go around, you get thick and thins. It's almost impossible not to, and then with the lighting it's really hard to see it. And so doing it this way, I can spray it a lot heavier and then just leave it sitting on here turning for a couple hours till it's really dried really good. And I used to use lacquer, and now I use almost exclusively Krylon clear acrylic that I get at Walmart. It dries harder, it dries faster, and stays perfectly clear, where most of the lacquers you buy, unless you buy the really expensive stuff, gets an amber cast to it, and particularly the depth, it does not dry near as fast. Yeah.
How slow can you run your lathe, or how slow do you run your lathe to do that spraying and then leave it dry that way?
On my Powermatic, I can get it down to about 50 RPM.
This one is about 75.
Yeah.
I have a Reeves drive that's just below that, and it goes down to 450, and it's
Yeah, it's too fast.
still going to sling
Yeah.
everywhere. Right?
Yeah. So I don't have a lathe anymore with belt drive. You know, just depend on that for variable speed, because my little one, I put a treadmill motor and controller on it. You can buy old treadmills really cheap. Take the motor and controller out and put that on your lathe with a little bit of work. That one was mine. I donated it to the club when I bought the Delta variable speed. And so I use those two lathes all the time. All right, let me caution you about these. This I started making a long time ago. This it's got a rubber, so you can put stuff up against it and it won't slip. And I'll pass this around. I started manufacturing these. I hoped I could sell them. I didn't have much luck selling them, and I've run out of the rubber, so I'm not doing that anymore. But I've done the same thing with this, and I put sandpaper on it. And so you can hold a block of wood up here and turn it without it sliding off. And then you can use it for sanding also. So you can put it on here, bring your tool rest around here, and you can do a lot of sanding on this, and you've got a lot of variable speed. But what I want to tell you about these pieces here, they're made out of plywood. Don't use anything but Baltic birch plywood. If you use plywood that's got the thicker veneers, when they cut that off thicker, off a round cylinder and then flatten it, it's just full of cracks and voids. They don't put enough glue to fill up those voids. And you start cutting into that void, it will separate and fail on you. So don't use anything except this Baltic birch plywood that's got 16-inch plies. And you can drill this 7/8 of an inch and then tap it with a regular tap for metal, or you can buy the special taps that they sell now. Beall sells for tapping this, and you drill your hole an 1/8 inch smaller, which gives you a 16th inch thread, which holds really solid. But this does have to bottom out onto here, so don't depend on the thread to get it lined up. it has to bottom out on this to make sure it's stable, solid, and stays on there. But this is just a bunch of rings stacked up, and the way you turn this is you put a 16 penny nail through your live center, tape it in place, and then you put the live center in the headstock with that locked, and then you can turn it, and it'll always be perfectly true with these threads. And then this one is MDF, and this is a power strop for getting sharpening your carving tools and stuff and getting them really sharp. And you just put buffing compound on there, white diamond buffing compound on there, and that works really good.
Is that leather, Jack? Is that leather you have on there?
MDF. No, it's just MDF.
Oh, just plain MDF.
Pass that
Okay.
around.
Yeah, okay. You don't have a cover on it?
No.
Yeah.
It's harder if it doesn't before.
Pass that one around.
Is this the stick back paper that you buy here? Because you know that art mount spray that I talked about? If you had a square regular paper, you could use it and peel it off.
And if you want to, you can get some rubber, like mouse pad rubber, and put on there also. Harbor Freight sells rubber to put in the bottom of your toolbox drawers, which you can use.
Fun foam for $1 at Hobby Lobby or Michael's is probably about as cheap and as easy
Yeah,
as you get.
that works good too. Here, we'll pass that around while you pass the stuff around. All right, now the other thing that comes in really handy, we were talking about going through the bottom of a bowl. I've got this, with that touching right there, I've got it marked right there. So if I put it in something right there, I can tell how thick it is. And this is just a piece of Baltic birch plywood. And this is a chopstick from the Chinese restaurant. And you can make this bigger and use a 1/4" wood dowel in it. But it's easy to make for any size that you want. The other one I had was only about this wide, so I used it and measured down the bottom of my deep vases. And so that's really easy to make and a really handy tool. And that's all I brought with me. Anybody got any questions for me about anything else?
On that plate, threaded plate that you had sandpaper on, what grit did you use on that?
I think that's 100 grit on that. You can use whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Well, I didn't know if you did that so it held real good.
Well, yesterday a neighbor of mine came by and he had a block of walnut. He wanted to make a bonsai table out of it. And it warped a little bit. And he was talking about, could I run it through the planer and true it up? Well, he told me that he wanted to leave some feet on there. So I put that faceplate with the sandpaper on there and brought the tailstock up, put it on that. And I turned about that much off the bottom of it, leaving the corners on there for his feet. And that trued that up, and then I turned it around and held it on there with the live center without the center point in it, and turned the other side down and got it all perfectly trued up for him. And it was a whole lot easier than trying to make a sled and run it through the planer, and then he was still going to have to carve off all that in between to have his legs.
You were asking about the grit. Well, for my segmented pieces, on my 12-inch disc sander, I use 60 grit. But on my drum sander, I use 80. And if you grain matched, you wouldn't see you could glue that together with no clamp, just hand pressure. And I defy you to see with 80 grit, I defy you to see a line.
Okay, who wants to go next? Mike? This one, right?
This is one of the most important ones because it's a safety device. I use the French cleat system on my wall, but this reminds me to always wear a face shield, not just glasses. Because I had an oak bowl explode and do wooden shrapnel all around, so I thought I'd just put the basis on there as kind of a reminder. I've got a Sorby spiraling texturing system. You know, it's got spiral wheels and it's got this texturing wheel. It kind of looks like a rowel. But I dismantled a treadmill and I wound up with a couple of these bars and they were already threaded. And I thought, well, you know, if I put my texturing wheel on here, I wouldn't have to keep changing it out. And the fancy one, it's got a slot cut in it for the threading, spiraling system. They call it a system because it costs so much money. They can get more money when they call it a system. But it turns out this is rigid enough. Just put a shoulder bolt, and it turns out you go to the hardware store, and I found the thread that matched. The real point of this, though, is Dave Martin made one of these at my suggestion because I gave him the other half of the bar that I had. You can buy the texturing wheel from Hartville Tools. You can get the crown wheel, and they're only about $30 at list price, and they have free shipping at Hartville. So you can make a texturing tool for virtually nothing. And of course, you could get cold rolled steel and drill a hole and tap it. I'm not real good at that sort of thing. This one's already tapped. And then all you have to do is you have to put a couple of washers on the thing that just fit inside so it won't rub on the wheel, but it will hold on the bearing. And that works pretty good.
Nylon or metal?
Oh, that's heavy.
Metal or nylon?
Yeah, they're metal. They're just plain ordinary
When you
washers.
get the wheel that comes with the bearing already pressed in?
Yeah, the bearing is already pressed in, and there was nothing fancy about the washers that come with the Sorby. I think they buy these parts off the shelf, and it uses 3 washers, 2 washers to fit in on one side and 1 washer on the other, so you'll have clearance for the wheel to spin. I mean, it's kind of a kludgy system when you think about it, when you buy it and look at it, but it works, and it was cheaper than them probably having something made to their specifications.
Brass washers, Mike, or just?
No, they're just washers. All they're doing is holding as spacers. You'll see it when it comes by. Nothing fancy. This is a spindle rest. AAW, I mean, a lot of people make these spindle rests. AAW paid me $35 for this tip. This one is just real simple. I've seen ones on pipe and fancy things with calibration, but it turns out this thing pivots just in case I got the hole drilled 1/10 of an inch off. It'll pivot just a little bit so it'll center on the spindle. This will go on my Powermatic. And it'll slide backwards and forwards. It doesn't need a lot of motion because you're only going to, spindles, chances are you're not going to go much more between a 1-inch or a 3-inch spindle, so it doesn't need a lot of play. You can get these wheels at any thrift store. You can buy a set of roller blades for about, top end about $5 for a pair of roller blade. Sometimes you can get cheaper and you can go off and buy just the wheels, but get some that are not black, so they won't stain or mess up your wood. Get some that aren't worn that look pretty nice, and they got bearings, and you know, that was pretty easy. Jack already talked about his honing thing. I took some hollowing lessons with Wes Jones, and this was one of the little tricks I learned from him, and he picked up at John C. Campbell. You know, those mandrels, anybody uses a power sander for your bowls, whether you use a drill or a Harbor Freight angle side drill, whatever they call it, as a sander, they're about $30. They work real well. Well, these mandrels are expensive. They're about $10 to put, you know, with the Velcro, put the Velcro on it. Turns out you make them out of plywood. You use a 1/4-inch bolt on the thing, drill a hole, put some kind of foam rubber. You can use, like Jack was talking about, you just pick different stuff. You can use the mats. You get them at dollar store for knee mats for gardening. You can cut up a koozie, you know, that you put your adult beverage in. You can cut that. Flip-flops work. Try different ones and try different
densities of compression because you might want a stiff one on your 80, 100 grit and a little bit softer as you get up toward 400. The Velcro, I bought some Velcro adhesive at Ace Hardware in a little tube. It works just real good. It wasn't too expensive. There's lots of things you can experiment with, but I just bought a tube of Velcro. I knew it would work.
When you say Velcro adhesive,
I just glue the Velcro because this
so
is.
So there's a piece of Velcro that you.
Yeah.
Oh
yes. It's got Velcro on it.
From Klingspor, you can buy 2 square feet for $10.
I thought you meant you just brushed the adhesive on it. It was Velcro.
No. I don't think it invented that yet, but it sounded like a great idea. I don't know where I got this Velcro. I certainly didn't get it from Klingspor. It's got two strips of it. You can put 2 strips together and it'll cover, you know, less than a 3. You want it a little less than 3 inch for their 3-inch Vince Welch type of sanding discs. You can make them 2 inch. You can make them 1 inch. But here's the neat thing about it. This thing sticks out. You put this in your drill, and your drill holds this thing, and you just spin these things on like this onto your drill. And you make a mandrel for every grit instead of tearing up, because if you've ever played with these things, tearing those things on and off just after a while destroys them.
You might as well throw them away.
You might as well throw them away. So you have a different grit, and then you just spin that baby on there. It's like, boom, you're done.
What did you put it on?
It's a coupling.
For threaded rod.
For threaded rod.
Coupling nut.
You get 4 of them for a couple of bucks. Okay. You know. And don't make this thing stick out much more than a 1/4 inch, because it only takes a few threads to hold it. More than that, and you're just doing more threading.
I have a question, Mike.
Yeah.
What's an adult beverage?
It could be anything an adult wants to drink. But it's usually cold, and it's usually got alcohol in it.
Sometimes carbonation.
Sometimes carbonation.
That's what the thing looks like. Here, I'll pass this around. Except you recess the nut in the thing, but basically it looks kind of like that. But that was a great idea.
If you want to make that longer, you can put some all thread on there and go to the hobby store and get a piece of brass tube that slides over it, and then you can hold that brass tube and it works really great.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, it spins just like a bearing.
Yeah.
It'd fit your hand. That's good.
Yeah, I've got a little brass tube on the extension for your speed board bits. I got a brass tube on that and don't need to lube it or anything, and that works great.
What does the brass tube do now?
It acts as bearing. The rod goes through it, and you can hold on to the tube, and the bearing will spin.
Turn inside of it.
Yeah,
Or threaded rod, whatever.
This is one of the tool rests Jack helped me make. He had some 4-inch steel pipe, Jack, and he quartered it, so it comes out very nice. And I picked up some cold rolled steel from a steel fabricate place, and before we welded it up, I thought, I'm good at details. I might not be real good with people, but I'm good at details. And I thought, let's make sure this thing will fit in the banjo. And it was just a shade off. So we put it in Jack's metal lathe and put a grinder on it and kept trial fitting it until it fit. Because it would have been a real bear to turn it off with this thing all welded up. But it was very, very nice. Very nice. Now I have 2 of them. I have a short one and a longer one. Because sometimes you want a real short one to get in there, and sometimes you want one about 6 inches long. And it's nice to have a choice between a 4-inch and a 6-inch.
That was just a quartered piece of pipe?
4-inch piece of steel pipe, yeah.
You ever thought about copying the robust? Just take a ball mill down the end and then drop it in the hard drill rod?
Tommy was talking about doing that, Tommy Rowland.
That'd be nice. That's beyond my pay grade.
Has anybody seen Tommy Rowland? It's been a while.
This is my version of a set of bowl calipers similar to Jack's. This is a coupling you use for twisted cable. Yeah, twisted cable. So you just clamp it down, one of them that's loose, and then I don't know what this doohickey is, but it's part of the same kind of system, I guess, you put on the end of a cable. I don't know, I read about this somewhere. And then I wrap red tape, and that gap right here is the same as this gap right here. And I don't know what this steel rod is. It's something I got at Home Depot or Lowe's. And it's not bad. It works. If you're not turning every day, this is all right. After a couple of years of using this, I thought I want a real set of calipers, and I found some on sale at Amazon, real cheap, that I really like. I do a lot of depth hole drilling, and I had a big old aircraft drill somebody gave me that I had a handle on it, and it works pretty nice. But you don't need, I don't need a big drill like that. And then I watched a Richard Rafford demo, and he had just a little bitty ordinary 1/4-inch drill and a handle. I thought, well, that makes a lot more sense, because that's about as deep as I'll go in a bowl or a box. And I don't need to fiddle with that large rod, and it's easier to pack and carry with you, and it just works great. Just deal like that. You don't even need to worry about a ferrule, because you're not getting any lateral tension on it. You're just pushing the thing in. So that works great for me. This was a tip AEW had. I don't know anything about shotguns, but it's some kind of shotgun cleaning
brush. Yeah.
Brush, and it's bronze, so it won't scratch the inside. But it's to clean the thing out. You've seen these green weenies that cost $20 for a piece of plastic? Well, these things are about $3 off Amazon. You go to a hardware store or a gun shop, I'd get it off Amazon because everything's much faster and easier. But it's about $3, poke it in the handle, and just clean that baby up. Now, if you got compressed air, maybe you don't need it. Just blow it out. But it'll keep you from damaging the what do you call it when you get it all gummed up?
After you compress a piece of sawdust in there, it won't blow off. You need that.
Yeah, this works. This is a great
That's for a
idea.
20 gauge shotgun, I think.
20 and it was 2 different gauges, 20 and 24, or 20 and 25, I think.
12,
something. Anyhow, it's
More simple is about 770. And
you can look in your AEW magazine index and find that tip and tell you exactly what size to use, but it works perfect.
Well, the fact that it's flexible brass, it doesn't need to be that exact.
No, because it's going to bend.
Yeah, bronze.
It's
Bronze.
bronze, it doesn't need to be that exact.
Yeah.
It's going to bend anyway when you stick it in there.
This is a little depth finder I use for boxes, and it's just friction fit, and it works pretty good. I can push it down like this to get it to adjust, and then gives me a standard reference. I can pick it up. Sometimes I got to using a regular caliper so much I forgot I had this, and sometimes this is nice because it doesn't shift on you like the plastic kind. Every time you got to pick it up, say, I got to measure the distance again, and then, whereas this you got a fixed reference, so that's nice. I got a bowl depth gauge doohickey too. Frank Penna had this design in one of his handouts, but it was real slick the way the thing tensions up on it. I can't even remember. You got this thing, I don't know what this thing is, but it's got a hole drilled through it, and this pulls on it, and it frictions against this rod to keep it stiff, so you can measure your bowls with it. Here's my chatter tool. I think I like Jack's better, except this is easier to make for me because it's just a piece of conduit with a nut on the inside and a shoulder bolt. You can use any kind of bolt, but I found one with an Allen wrench is easier to use than one that's got a hexagonal head. And then I got fancy. I put an Allen wrench on the bottom so I could adjust this thing because it's reversible. I can use this as a small parting tool on the other end where it's just got a, but this has got a double bevel on it. Yeah, I read all that stuff out. Yeah, you can use any kind of piece of hacksaw blade and sawzall and all that, and I experimented with it, and there's a bunch of crap. You got to get something predictable. So what I did was I bought a replacement chatter tool blade from Hartville Tool when they had a 20% off sale on Sorby and free shipping, and it was like $5 or something. I thought, that's hard to beat. Well, I got to playing with it, thinking about a workshop that one club might have one of these days of different tools. This is a cutoff tool from Harbor Freight. It comes in a $5 set of high-speed steel metal tool bits, and it's got this cutoff tool in it. It's got a 1/16 inch bit and a 1/4 inch bit and a 3/16 inch bit and a round bit. But this works real well. It chatters about as well as the Sorby one does, and it's in a kit of $5, and you've got these other pieces of high-speed steel, and it's reversible, and you can use it for a thin parting tool on the other end.
What kind of kit do they call that?
It's a tool bit. I don't know. It's about $5 at Harbor Freight, and it's over there where they got all the little saws, and it's on the wall. It's on that wall. It's got all that stuff, and you just got to look for it. It's in there. They got stuff you know where they got a Jacob's chuck, and they got 1/4-inch face, or they got a 1x8 face plate. I mean, they got some weird stuff over there that you'd never think about.
So that's not the piece you bought from
no, the difference is this is a 1/2 inch as opposed to the ones you get with most chatter tools are 3/8 of an inch. They are both 1/16 of an inch thick. So all I did was slide this out just a little bit, maybe another 1/4 of an inch more, so it'd vibrate.
Can you pass that around?
Yeah, before that though, let's, if you want, I can demonstrate it if we want to go the trouble. We'll wait till see if we get time left, but if we have time, we'll give it a try. It will work, so I'll pass it around. Oh, I got an earth magnet to hold this thing in, but thank you. Years ago, when I first started going at the wood turner, somebody brought in a Fibonacci gauge, and I made one, but I didn't get the measurements of the points exactly right, so it didn't work worth a toot. And then I made a bigger one, and I worked real hard to get the points right. But it's real nice to give you that reference of 1 to 1.618, the golden ratio Fibonacci scale. So, you know, you got this ratio versus this ratio, and it gives you a feel for where you want to put a design on a bowl, where you want to put the lid on a box. So it's kind of a handy device once you get it. Instead of trying to measure it or just guess and say I'll go with thirds, you know, you can get it 0.68 instead of 0.66 or something. But
I've got a bigger one, and I use it quite often on bases and stuff because you're turning the base horizontal, but when you finish with it, it's going to be vertical, and it totally looks different to the eye.
We talked about hollowing globes and different tools. Let me talk before I get into this one. Let me show you some of the experimental tools that I've used, some with more success than others. Allen wrenches. Allen wrenches will work. They will do the job. There's better tools. This one works for my captive rings, and it works pretty good. I use a smaller wrench and cut it kind of sharp, and you get in there, you know, to make that captive ring. And this works pretty good for captive rings. This works okay for bigger ones, and then as you get close to it, though, you need something that's pretty short. This is one we made at a woodworking. Bob had a class. The problem I had with it was the same problem that I think you had. It had too much overhang, so I wound up having to cut the tool bit back because it was just too much torque. But this is
at least a half.
Yeah, but this is high-speed steel, and it's silver soldered onto some drill rod or something. What I found, though, even with this, it works, but this is pretty thin, and you get a lot of chatter unless you're doing something real small. It works, but I think there's something better. So what I did is I took my handy-dandy Harbor Freight tool. I had several, you know. I started off with one kit. I had the one with white handles, and then I went over to Jack's shop. I just fell off a turn-up truck, you know, didn't know nothing. And Jack says, "Oh no, you got the wrong set. This is a very sorry steel. You got to buy this other set. Oh, then you got to buy this bowl gouge, and then you got to." I'll tell you what, that's an expensive day, but I learned some good things. So I wound up with a lot of Harbor Freight tools. This is what I'd call the Dale Nish style, and if you look at Craft Supply, they've got his signature version of it. And I'd seen a couple of them. I think Ted Riggs had one, and it's a real pain to regrind one of these things because it takes a long time in that high-speed steel to get it ground. But once you get it ground, it doesn't take a whole lot to true it up, and most of the time you can just take a hone. But this thing is stiff enough for hollow globe ornaments. You don't get to chatter. You can do the inside of a globe with one tool. You don't need to have one to go here, one to go here, and one to go further down. This will do it all. I drew this line on it, and that gives me the depth. It gives me an orientation for the wall. and it just works real well. You can buy these. Penn State's got some versions of it. You got to look at them, so you can probably order them here and get them 10% off and not have to pay shipping. So if you're going to make one, I would certainly look at the Penn State version because you don't have to regrind it. But some of theirs are thicker. This is a half-inch. Half-inch I think works out pretty well. If you get a 3/4 and you try to get in hollow globes, you got a lot of grinding to get down to it. But I find this thing beats the heck out of these other things that I've tried. One tool I use a lot, I didn't use it a whole lot when I first saw it. You know, sometimes we just have fun making tools, right? You just make things and you say, oh, that's fun. You put it away and try to use it. Doesn't work worth a darn. You put it aside. This is a pyramid tool. This is a 5/16 inch piece of high-speed steel tool bit. And I got it from probably Grizzly when I was ordering something else. They're not real expensive. I think they're about $3.50 or maybe $4 at most. But you just grind these 3 facets on it, and if we have time, I could demonstrate if we have time. It's great for doing small beads, and as I've gotten into doing threading work, it is just the neatest tool for finishing off the face and rounding off the edge of where you're gonna thread and doing a recess. So I found it to be very, very handy for the kind of stuff that I'm doing right now. And if you just want to face off a small piece of spindle stock, this will just send those nice little streamers. Because it's got 3 edges, and you pick it up, every time you pick it up you're going to use a different edge. You know, you get 3 times the use out of that thing, because it's basically a scraper most of the time, unless you're using the tip to do beads with. If you Google Frank Penna, eventually you get to his website. You can find a handout where you can download his handout where he talks about these things. I wouldn't use one with a 1/4 inch steel. I think it's too small to be useful. This is a piece of 1/4 inch high-speed steel rod that you get from Inco. This is one of the best bargains around. These are $2.60, I think, Bob. They're real cheap. And they're cheaper if you get a bunch of them. If we have a workshop, and Bob may be looking at that later, you know, the price comes down even more. This is what I'd call my version of a Cindy Vortex. Cindy Drozda a Vortex tool. I think she calls it a skew without a bevel, spindle gouge without a flute or something. She's got some little story with it. But it works pretty well for very specialized purposes. About the only thing I use this for is when you're trying to touch up. I don't mind picking this up. If you want to do a touch up on something very, very fine, detail, where you just want to crisp something up a little bit, like on a finial, where your detail gouge won't get in there, your regular skew won't quite get in there. This thing, because it's so flat and so narrow and it's sharp, you just use it to just crisp at the bottom of those V's and just kind of crisp it up. And then you can also use it as a regular skew for fine stuff. It's just, I haven't found it to be as useful for that as much as it's just a crisping up tool.
Is it the round stock one?
Yeah, this is the round stock.
And it's kind of a spear point with a flat top. I can't see.
Yeah, I'll pass it around.
I'm passing that around.
Yeah.
Where do you get that steel?
Inco, you got to order it. I've made quite a few globe ornaments, and I don't have compressed air in my shop, so this is my portable air compressor, and this just works great. You know, it would really suck to have to do a hollow form with this, but for a little globe ornament, this works better than a straw, you know, because it's easier to keep from losing it or dropping it on the floor.
Doesn't come back in your face.
Doesn't come back in your face. I even went to the trouble of I kept picking up the end with all the sawdust in it, so I finally turned the mouthpiece on, only for the purpose I know which end is theoretically the cleaner end, because it still falls on the floor and gets dirty. But I think that's all the stuff I got, unless we got time for demo the chatter tool or something.
Let's go next. Bob, you wanna go next?
Oh, except these little gauges real quick. Makes the little wire gauges for your hollow globe ornaments, and you just make different sizes, and you can make them out of coat hanger.
You do that to tell how much you've got cleaned out inside?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You bend it with a 1-inch gap, so then you stick it inside and measure how much you got left.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I'd make something like that, because I made an ornament the other day, it was looking really good, it just turned out beautiful. But when I got done, took it all off, it was actually heavier than what I wanted. You know, I wasn't getting, I knew I was covering a lot of it, but it was about that thick on the outside.
With the little coat hanger, it's amazing what memory that coat hanger wire has.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to make one.
Mike, that's yours.
we make several of them, because some different shapes will get in places where others won't.
Well, see, I
Like a
had something like a
D-shaped
caliper.
a C or whatever.
I was looking at like a caliper with both sides, but this one, if you know it's a 1-inch, all you have to do is just go with what's on the outside. You're not worrying about bending it
Probably
around.
put a little steel wool up against the measure when you get really close.
Same thing Mike's talking about. That's round and around skew. This is the way that stuff comes, and I checked it, $2.60 a piece in some short quantities. That's 1/4x8 high-speed steel, M2.
Is that $2.60 for the package or $2.60 for each?
Each.
Is that a local place? Inco?
No, and the website is useinco.com. They used to have a store here, and I think MSC bought them. But basically, you got to.
MSC bought them and they're out in.
Yeah, they were in Chicago. I think they billed me out of Chicago.
They're all Fulton Industrial.
There's
MSC.
a MSC right here by.
MSC will generally run a little
stock
more money,
anything there.
but basically we're talking metal machine tooling stuff.
We bring it over and truck and you pick it up there and save shipping.
There's, to me, two divisions in the homemade tool stuff. That's taking a piece of high-speed steel and grinding. I like that spear point. That's why I wanted to see Mike's. I did the one I'm passing around. That's teak and brass, and you know there's maybe $4 worth in there. If you want to have really nice finials, go to Home Depot in the fan department and buy solid brass 3/4 nipples, and they come in different lengths, and you cut them off. The little 1/4-inch round skew has got a brass thick wall. If you go cheap, you go over in the plumbing section and buy couplings and cut them in half. And if you put the finished end inward, and then when you get them in the lathe, you can true up the ragged end that you cut with a hacksaw with your regular tools. But as opposed to just taking a piece of high-speed steel, mounting it, this is a tool bit, I guess 1/4x1, and if you look, you can see if you can find the joint in it. The bigger they get, the more expensive. That's probably $6 or $8 there. Cheaper than going and buying a skew. And then the back end is just 1018, just soft steel. Speedy Metals has quite a selection. They'll cut it to length or sell it to you in 12-inch, 24-inch. And this is just 1018 cold rolled. And it grinds, like I've used the same things as Mike on the hollowing, even though I've made a flock of those little things. Mine is a bodger. And grinding high-speed steel, if you're trying to move metal, takes a while. 1018 grinds a lot easier, but that's crepe myrtle. Here's another version. If you want a heavy scraper, they get real expensive. Again, 1018 is pretty cheap. 1-inch pipe coupling, crepe myrtle handle, 1018 bar, and if I say reciprocating hacksaw, does that mean anything? Yeah. They're available. They go like this rather than round and round like a bandsaw. The blades are fairly heavy, and they're not in band type cutoff saws are a lot more common, but you can still, if you got a machine shop buddy that's got one, he'll have used blades. And you can buy them new and cut them up. But that's a hacksaw blade silver brazed on top of a piece of 1018, which gives you a fairly heavy scraper at fairly low cost. Again,
What did you use that on, sir?
if you don't want your scraper to chatter on your bowl and your bowl's big enough for that curve to fit in, that'll do it. Again, this is real complicated construction. This is a hacksaw blade on some scrap walnut, and when it goes around you can see I didn't get too picky about the end fitting. That's just epoxied together to give you a thin cutoff tool.
What's the source of the steel on that one you're passing around?
Hacksaw blade, used for any machine shop buddy that's got a reciprocating hacksaw.
Okay, yeah.
Or if you want to go first class, you can buy those blades from Inco or any of the metal working tooling places. And I had some tool, and I was in a hurry and I was out of them. I actually bought some new blades and used. I can't remember now what that was for. The metal tool bits can get pretty good size. If you want a really stiff scraper, that could be brazed on a piece of 1018 or just cold rolled steel. That's high-speed steel.
That's about $14 or $16 for that bit, I think.
Yeah, those are getting pricey. Because when I started, these quarter-by-8 was not like $1.50. They jacked the prices up.
Where do you get your brazing done?
Yeah.
You do it yourself?
Mm-hmm. We're talking about doing that late in the year, in 2013. This is stone simple for boring bars. And I can't think, one of the name Turners started this. Rather than drilling and tapping, basically you bore a hole in a piece of 1018, the size of the diagonal of the tool bit you're using, and if it don't quite fit, you just kiss the corners on your grinder and then epoxy it in place, or super glue.
Yeah, that's
Who's doing that?
Dave Ellsworth and Trent Bosch, both just glue it in.
Now that one fits pretty tight. No, I don't know if that one's just tight or it's stuck in there.
And is this high-speed steel here?
No, yes, that's.
Yeah, that's one of those drill bits you'll get in that $5 kit.
And
really?
Yeah, that's the 1/4-inch one I think there in that bottom.
Yeah.
You mean tool bit?
Tool bit, yeah.
Yeah. Tool bits, Inco, and again, I checked these late this afternoon, 3/16 square by 2.5, 95 cents a piece in onesie twosies. I think their quantity break hits at 20. And I don't know if I brought it or not. They got 1/4x8 high-speed steel square, but that's $642. I don't know why the square's so much more money than the round. But these little guys are less than $1 a piece. And if you're making like the tool, now that's one, you need to cut your tool bit that long, because you got, for silver solder, you need to have pretty good fitting joints. And to clamp all of this and leave some spot in here, space to get the torch in, make them that long. When you get them glued up, take them to the grinder and cut them and cut half of it off. That's way too long. And there's a variety. This is 1/4 square. These are $1.25 or something. And this again is just a piece of 1018. And you can see I haven't cleaned it up or put a bit in it. I don't know if the shape's going to be right or not. I think I did that with a little propane bottle torch, and that's not enough heat. You can see where I burned it, trying to get it hot enough to bend. For this, an oxyacetylene torch would be much better. But that can go in a handle or an interchangeable chucking arrangement, and you can buy this stuff in, I've got it all the way up to 3/4 to go in a hauling rig.
And make sure you drill the hole through it before you bend it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good point. So, and again, for quick and cheap, it's hard to beat the Allen wrenches. If you do the ornaments, the globes, your finials, you know, it's particularly if you're up close to the chuck, trying to get in there to relieve that, to put a curve on the inside so it'll sit down flush. That's an Allen wrench, and it's ground the other way. That one is to go in this way. Figured you got the pointy end of your finial towards the tailstop. And that's, you know, you stop by the hardware store and I don't know what size that is. It's $1 and you got to make a handle. So,
Bob, what does a piece of steel cost?
I don't remember. I got it from Speedy Metal. It's at 1018. It's pretty reasonable. I imagine it's, I'm guessing $5, $6, $8, something like that.
Yeah, a scraper that size is probably going to run you $60 to $90.
Yeah.
Full high-speed steel scraper that size. It's a whole lot.
And you know, that's I think 1/2 by 1.5 inches. Does that look right, Rob?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good inch and a half.
And you don't see many 1/2-inch thick scrapers. I guess you can get them, can't you?
I have one that's a 1/2 inch. I haven't figured out what to use it for. I just so big. I've never found a use for it. It's either a jet or a sorbet. It's a big one. You know, it looks about like that. Might even be thicker. It might be 5/8 and just honk it, but I don't know what to do with it.
Did you
There's
sell
some in the
did you sell
catalog,
this out
different
of that?
90
Yeah.
or $100
Nice job.
Well, thank you.
Typically, they're more like 5/8, or not 5/8. They're usually 3/16.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you want to scrape the interior of a bowl, birdhouse ornament probably wouldn't work.
Yeah, you could make a bandana or a nice beading and parting tool. Out of that.
And there's not but 2 or 3 pages on in the Inco catalog, and I find it easier to get into there. If you go into the website, you can search for whatever you want, and then it'll give you the catalog page. And I still think print catalog, so you can see the different, rather than having to call up each item, you can see all of the round high-speed steel tool bits, you know, in like a 1/2 page. So anyway. And I know, as you can tell, I make tools, I'm cheap. And I'm not so sure there's not a little bit of hype floating around in the various grades of high-speed steel. And if you get an any metal machining tooling company catalog, you'll see those. There's cobalt 8%, cobalt 10%.
Is this yours?
Yeah. No, that's mine.
You wanted to see it, though.
Yeah, I know. I saw it a while ago. And that's useful, maybe, but keep in mind that just before World War II, high-speed steel was developed. And it was one of the things that helped win the war. It has the quality, it will hold strength, and it's all metal machining tools. The use in woodworking is something in the last 20 years or so. The claim to fame for high-speed steel, you can put that tool bit in a metal lathe, really hog material, and that tool bit will hold its strength and its edge running at red heat, which is about 1300, 1350. And I'm not real convinced whether you've got just M2 high-speed steel or all the other upgrades. If you're turning wood, probably to me the only difference it makes is if you're standing in front of a lathe 8 hours a day whacking out production stuff, turning platters, you know, trying to get 40 of them a day. Some grades maybe you have to sharpen less, but you know, I did 2 ornaments today. So I went to the grinder 3 times instead of 2. Do I really care for maybe doubling the
Are you
price?
talking about high speed versus carbon, or are you talking about high speed versus powdered or cryogenic?
High speed in various configurations. And you can get into the tool catalogs, and this one says it's the cobalt, and this is the other formula. And they all have metal machining purposes. It's not, but to me, if you're building this stuff, doing it cheap, you just get with the high-speed steel, just M2, which is a basic high-speed steel. Yes, sir.
Have you ever made a tool to use out of the shank of a drill bit that's high-speed steel?
Too short.
Yeah, and the trick on there, and again, Bob, if you didn't hear, Bob said too short. If you get into MSC or McMaster-Carr or an Inco catalog, you can buy drill bit blanks, and all this, you know, letter, number, and fractional size or metric, and it's just a piece of steel and it's hardened.
Jimmy, what kind of tool did you have in mind?
Oh, that's just a question. I have not made one. I just.
I mean, are you talking about using the end of the actual drill bit with the flutes for some reason, or are you just using
opposite end?
Oh, okay.
Because that's something that's available easy rather than ordering. You know, you can go pick up high-speed drill bit.
Yeah, but I don't have one.
You can do that.
You know,
if you're going to braze it on something.
Yeah, you could do that. Buying the blanks would be easier. And the other thing, drill rod.
It's hard to beat that $2.60
Yeah.
Inco and go in with somebody and get several.
I've not used this, but drill rod is pretty accurate stuff, and it's typically available in 3-foot lengths. I say accurate in terms of diameter. And it's TG&P, turned, ground, and polished. Nice finish on that stuff. 3-foot length, and it comes in the anneal state. And it's O1 and W1. And O is oil hardened, so when you temper it in oil, and W you temper in water. And I've read some about it, but I've never gotten really cranked about doing the heat treating. It's the old blacksmith, you know, when he had the slack tub and he kept it off in the dark part of the shop so he could see what degree of red he had the same day, whether it was a cloudy day or a sunny day. If you're heating metal outdoors, it makes a big difference. It was done. But heat treating, you really need control of your temperatures, and just looking at it and saying, that's cherry red, so that's 1350, and I'm going to stick it in the oil, and the oil is at 100 degrees, or should it be 200? I've never gotten into it, but in the anneal state, you can do all sorts of things. It's soft.
That's the real advantage to the anneal state, is you can grind it better, you can bend it better.
Oh, yeah.
That's my conclusion. The more you mess with that, it's cheaper to.
Yeah, dude. Now, all of this stuff, I think everything Mike was talking about and everything I've been talking about and passing around, those are hard, ready to run in a metal lathe, or grind your own tool for a metal lathe. It's in the hard state. It's not annealed. You can, if you dig around, you can find unannealed or annealed high-speed steel, which means it's going to be a lot easier to grind, and it comes in bars. It's comparatively cheaper. But, and this is something I just recently found, I think it was True Grit, knife making supply house. They will temper blades for you I think up to 10 inch at $10 a pop. And I'm sure they would do, you know, if you tell them what the metal is and what schedule you want, you know, it goes in the furnace and blah, blah, blah. But getting all this done and then sending it out, the freight plus $10 for tempering, you might as well go buy a tool.
No, I just asked about the bits because I get out of the street and buy a bit.
It worked, and you don't want to be putting the flutes in the handle because it's sideways. A drill flutes really weaken the thing. So anyway, I'm done. And if we want to, later in the year, we can play with some brazing one day.
I've got to check with Dave and see if it's okay with him.
Yeah, we might play over the smoke alarms.
Show and tell.
Yeah, the first thing I brought in, I really didn't bring in. Shortly after I started turning, I realized I really needed a place to keep all my turning supplies. So I built this this tool cabinet. It sits right behind my lathe. Everything on it, I got all the ideas I copied either from Sawmill Creek or Woodnet Forum. It's really a good place. I measured, before I built the drawers, I measured all my turning tools to make sure they would fit. So it was designed specifically for me. So if you want to know what the dimensions are, it may work for you, it may not work for you, I don't know. But if you want to come to McDonald and look at it, you're welcome to do so. If it works well for me. A lot of the things that I brought in you've already seen. Mike showed his Frank Penta tool to find the bottom of a bowl. If you go to his website, he does a great job. I mean, he tells you what to buy at Home Depot or Lowe's.
Gives you part numbers.
He tells you what section it's in, what the part number is, where to put it, and I use this quite a bit. It works real well. But
it looks cool.
It looks like a real tool that you buy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice. During Dan's demo, he had his wrench, his pipe fitter's plumber's wrench. Plumber's wrench to put the chuck on and take it off.
Wrench.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of nice. So I actually went home and bought one, and I took it home and I really didn't like it because it
was too loose.
It slips.
It slips. It's a sorry tool.
Yeah, so I made this, and I actually stopped at the scrapyard and I think I bought it for $3, a piece of steel, and cut it out with a saber saw and filed it off. And I was actually over at Mark Soleil's house one time and I showed it to him and he said, "What's that?" And I told him, and I was pretty proud of it. And he said, "Well, why did you do that?" And I said, "To take the chuck on and off." He said, "Why didn't you just buy one?" I said, "Because the ones you buy are too thick, they won't fit in there." He said, "No," he said, "if you go to Ace Hardware, they have spanner wrenches, which are just as thin as this, any size you want, and they're like $6. Okay, so.
That's that negative knowledge I was talking
Yeah,
about.
so that, well, you can learn from my mistake.
Negative knowledge.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about tool rests. When you buy a lathe, it typically comes with the standard tool rest, and most people go out and then buy a shorter version. And for most things, that works fairly well. But if you're going to do any hollowing, it's really nice to have a couple of different tool rests. Bill already showed one that you can use for boxes. And it'll fit right inside the box. It was made by Tommy Rowland. I think he sold a number of ones to different club members, and I use it quite a bit. And one of the nice things about it is not only does it fit inside a box, but your hollowing tool fits nice and flat on it. And if you adjust it, it's right above center, and it works perfect. You don't have to worry about it tipping or one of those things. Just keep it flat, and it works great. So that'll work great inside a box to a certain extent. And when it's inside the box, you can also get your cutting edge deep in the box without it hanging over. It's over by maybe 1/4 of an inch. It works great.
You find it that particular one a little bit too long?
I think I need to chop about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch off the bottom.
No, the support, not the
I'm talking about the overhang.
I'm talking about the, well, no.
We're talking about the post.
I'm talking about the flat.
No, that's fine. If it's too long, I just pull it out. My post is,
Shame on you.
the post is too long on mine.
No, compare that to the length of your tool. If you sharpen your tool 2 more times, you're out of support. Set the tool up again.
Yeah.
Now,
As you
if you
sharpen
were
that
running
tool,
straight
the
in,
tool
see the
gets
other
so
angle?
I never run straight in.
Okay.
You can, well, it depends on how big the box is. If the box is this wide,
Yeah.
you don't have to run it straight in, just run it off the side. Because if the tool rest is only this long, you're not going to get into the bottom of the box. Or, if you don't like that one, you can use this one. Tommy also made this for me.
Those are all Tommy Rowland?
Yeah, well, this, I actually gave Tommy the design for this, and he cut it out and made it. Because if you're inside a vase, you can't get around the corner with this one. So you put this on, and now you can suddenly get under the lip of that corner.
Reinforcing on the bottom there.
Yeah.
That's the thing wrong with mine that was made longer. It's too thin.
So you can put that, just that part in.
To me, it looks, the curve looks backwards. Am I missing something? I'm not working
Using it
it.
inside.
Using it inside. Inside.
Yeah. That's not for a bowl, that's inside
It's inside a vase.
Hollow form.
If you had something,
The,
you had something like this. This would be in there, and you'd be,
oh, okay.
okay?
Yeah, I got you.
And then if you're working on a really deep hollow form, you've got that monster. Because you, once again, if you've got a long hollowing tool, you don't want it hanging that far off your tool rest. So you put this inside the tool or inside the base, and you're only off by, once again, a half an inch to an inch. But
It looks to me like there is a slight downward slope from my position left to right.
This one?
Headstock to headstock.
Well,
Is it just not tightened up, or is it designed that way?
well, let me.
I think it's just not tightened up.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
Tommy Rowland made these two. These are really very nice. Somebody else made this one. It's not quite as nice cosmetically, but it is functional. Because if you're doing hollowing, the last thing you want is to have your point 6 or 7 inches off of the tool rest. You want it tight to it. So you can do a lot with tool rests.
And that's all just mild steel?
No, this is stainless, I believe. Yeah, I believe, not, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's mild steel. I don't think they make tool rests out of mild steel, do they?
You can.
Yeah, traditionally they're cast iron.
Well, I know it's not cast iron.
But I think you're right. It's not, yeah, I don't know what's, it's not high-speed steel. It might be, but yeah, because Tommy's is doesn't stain or.
Tommy's is pretty high quality stuff,
I
yeah.
don't know what it is. It's not high-speed steel. It's not all cheap.
This I had brought in once before, and this is to turn the tenon off of a hollow form. Because once you turn your hollow form, you've got to get this tenon off. Because I mean, it's in the chuck, you've turned it all out, and normally it doesn't have a hole on it. This was for a demo, so you could see what it looks like inside. But you reverse it, and you need to turn the foot off. You don't want to put any pressure on the top of this, because a lot of times it's curved over, and it's got a hole about the size of a quarter. And the last thing you want to do is, jam it or something. You want to jam it against the bottom of it. So what you do, is try to find the right size Allen wrench.
Which is always a challenge.
It's a wooden rubber chuck.
It is. It is. And this is not deep enough, but this will seat against the bottom of your hollow form, just like that. And then all this does is that will push down and just fill in this space. There is no gap to keep it from doing one of these jobs. And then you bring the tailstock up. And you just tighten it up. You bring your tool rest back and you just take the bottom off. I should mention, there's not an original thought in this box. I've copied everything from an internet site. This came from the American Wood Turner, other woodworkers, people in this room. So I've learned a lot, but I've not
all
really.
stand on the shoulders of giants, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about that. Huh?
Does that rod have a taper milled on the end?
All that is a, it's a Beall buffing system bar.
3 on the one.
He's ready.
When I
Did you buy the Penn State one, Bob? Yeah.
When I bought the first Beall buffing system, I bought the one that had the 3 muffs on the bar, and I really didn't like it because they were too close to each other. So I took the muffs off and I put each on an individual bolt. Now that I use them separately, but I had this sitting around the workshop for several years, and I actually thought about throwing away or selling it, but I just threw it in the corner. And then there was an article in American Woodturner about 3 or 4 months ago, and I actually bought a piece of 3/4 inch threaded rod and gave it to Tommy, and he started to mill a number 2 Morse taper on it. But the 3/4 inch rod you buy from Home Depot is hip. So he milled it, and the end of it was whipping around like that. So I thought, well, if I've got this, you could probably also fashion something like this out of a pen mandrel in a lot of your pen turners. A pen mandrel has a number 2 Morse taper on it.
Yeah, it's not threaded, but.
Sure it is. Well, only the end of this is threaded. This is just a straight shaft. There's no threading on this. So I think you could.
You just turn the threads off of the Beall shaft?
No, it never came with threads. Mike and I had this conversation. His is threaded the whole way.
Yeah, mine is too.
This is how mine came, threaded from here to there. Must have been an earlier version or a later version.
If you use the pen mandrel, with that, you're talking about with that rod, the rod wouldn't give you enough support.
It might.
How much can you compress with 1/4 inch?
You're just taking the you just need enough pressure to turn the tenon off.
Yeah.
I mean, try it.
And you don't
I
want
have the adjustable length to the pen maker, so you can make it short if you know. It doesn't have to be
Most of
that.
all forms you're going to do this.
If anybody's interested in making one, I have a taper attachment on my 14-inch metal lathe set up for a taper.
Regular metal bar.
There's been a lot of discussion about these 1/4 inch rods, and I actually bought about a dozen of them a couple of years ago. I think I kept 4 of them for myself and sold the remaining 8 to people in this room. I think, Dick, you might have bought a couple of them, I'm not sure.
What were they?
These 1/4 inch rods.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've used, which has actually worked quite well for me, is just turning handles. And where did I put the Allen wrenches? Here we go. The only problem with these Allen wrenches is it seems like half of my tools are metric and half of them aren't. And trying to remember which is a pain in the butt. But we've already talked about the Allen or the Allen wrench for hollowing. We've talked about this Scoogee tool or whatever, and that is really good, as you mentioned, for finials. Getting in and cleaning out, I think Mark calls them whizzers or whatever.
Crisping it up.
There's little fuzzies at the bottom, but and I think we're each sharpening them a little different. I just slap mine up against the grinding wheel like that, and it just takes off one side of it, and it works great for me. Made another one for a captive ring tool, but rather than have a bunch of separate tools with handles on each one of them, I've elected to go with one handle with separate tools.
Oh, that's the cat's meow right there. That's a good use of a rod.
And that's out of the 1/4 inch high speed steel?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And I think I've got a couple more left at home just to decide, what I want to do with them. You can buy these.
Make one handle. You don't have the expense of the pipe nipples.
Well, you don't, and you can buy these fittings in 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/2 inch, and I've got one of each. And I've.
The guy from Goshen, Mississippi.
Fred Messer.
Mark Chalet has them.
I buy them from Mark.
Fred's making.
Yeah.
But
Fred's the whole set.
And then you can buy. You can buy the tool bits. I think this is a Sorby tool bit, and I can't remember how much he sells them for.
$5 it was.
$5 for those.
No, I'm talking about the bit.
Oh, they're like $22 up.
Yeah, I think Mark sells them for 20 bucks or something. But I'm finally getting to the point where I may actually be wearing out my first turning tool ever, and it's my spindle gouge. So, and if you take lessons with Mark, that's the tool that you'll learn how to use. So rather than have to buy a new spindle gouge, all I had to do was buy a replacement bit. And so these tool handles, in my opinion,
sovereign system.
yeah, it's a Steve Millett sovereign system. So, but it works. They're good. They're good for me. We had talked about. I've got a.
That's what you're talking about. Sorby, you're talking about buying their unhandled sovereign.
Yeah.
Tool. Yeah.
These are the Mike Peace knockoffs. These are great.
Yeah.
These are great. I've used these before. You know, when you bring a piece to show and tell or something, you typically wrapping them in newspaper or paper towels or an old towel or whatever. This is from Goodwill, an old pair of sweatpants, and you just chop it off. You get 6 of these out of a pair of sweatpants, and you sew up one end. They've got elastic on them, and you stick them in there, and you throw them in the bag, and you're ready to go.
And even the elastic is kind of circular. All you really need is just fold it over. You just got to have that one end stitch.
It's great. The old go no go gauge. I mean, you put a spindle in here, and I'll tell you the worst thing that for me is cutting a tenon on a piece of work and taking it off and pulling the center out and putting the chuck on and trying to put the work in, and it's too big, or worse yet, it's too small and doesn't fit, so you got to start all over again. All you do is you just put the work in there, stick a banana up to it. If it's too big for that, it's not big. It's too big for the chuck. As long as it's between that and that, you're good to go. That way you know it's just one way of knowing that you know that the tenon's going to fit your chuck. It saves yourself a lot of aggravation. And then we've already talked about the gauges used to measure the walls, the thickness of a wall. And the last thing that I have is something that Tommy made for me. You can use this to measure the wall of a hollow form, but when you get pretty far down the hollow form, it's pretty darn difficult. And you're always turning, pulling it out, measuring, turning, pulling it out, measuring. Tommy actually made this laser system for me. I designed it, bought the steel on the internet, gave it to him. He welded it up. This is a laser that I bought from Mark Soleil, I think for $5. This is a battery pack from a telephone that we've got at home. You know, one of the old phones. The only thing I'm missing for some of you people who used to work for the phone company, I need a jack that fits the end of this so that I can pull it out of this and just stick it back in the charger. Because right now I have to thread the 2 wires into those holes and tape it down.
That's not a standard phone jack anyway.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. This little piece is kind of surprising. Jim Kunzweiler made this for me, and I had given him some drawings and diagrams, and he made it for me and I brought it in, and we had breakfast one day and he showed it to me. I said, "Oh," I said, "that looks perfect." He says, "Okay, now I'll go make the real one." I said, "What do you mean you make the real one?" He said, "Well, this is just a throwaway. This is the prototype." I said, "No, that's not the pro. This is perfect. This works fine." So that's the last thing that I've got. But and then I've brought a number of these things. But one thing I've learned is, you know, I think when you first go into turning, you decide to go out that you have to buy the tool that you need for the job. Well, you really don't. Find out what job you've got and then make the tool to fit it. And for people who don't like to use scrapers or skews, there are tons of scrapers and skews out in the used market at flea markets that you can buy to make things from. If you want to buy them new, you can go there and buy a brand new scraper for $12. High-speed steel, Penn State scraper. Just chop it off and do whatever you want with it. You can use a skew for something like that. Just chop it off and make something out of it. There, for $12, you can have a high-speed steel, whatever you want.
A grinder in 30 seconds converts a skew to a scraper.
Yeah, or you can make really any kind of tool that you want. Yeah. So
high speed 10 still work.
How does what work?
That laser.
This.
Does it work pretty good?
Theoretically, it does.
I haven't had it up yet.
I haven't had it up yet, yeah. I've been preoccupied with building a house.
Get your priorities right.
Well, but why do you excuse?
Well, what you know basically how a laser works or not? Yeah, you've got your tip of your, if you look overhead, you've got the arm of the tool sticking out, and then you've got your tip, and you've got your light up on top, your laser light, and your light is shining straight down. You want the light to be shining right about there, say 1/8 of an inch out or 1/4 of an inch out or whatever. Whatever you want your wall thickness to be. And as you go in, this laser, you'll see it on top of your work. And
Outside.
right on top of the work. Because because you gotta remember, this is inside the hollow form. So the light will be shining right on top of your work. And as you're going down the side, once that laser falls off the edge of your work, you know you've got that much to go. If you keep going, you're going to go right through the side. So a lot of times people will follow the laser right on the top of the edge of their work. They won't let it fall off. But you can adjust this to whatever distance you want. And that's what this piece on the top is for. There's a wing nut on it. You can push it off to the side. You can pull it out. You can do whatever you want with it.
Won't the beam be distorted on the side until you get it to the point it's the right thickness? Then it'll be straight?
No, it's a straight light. It's a straight light going up and down.
Yes.
As long as you can see the light on top of your work, you know you've got more to cut. Once it gets right to the edge, then you know you got to stop.
If you assume the light is a cylindrical beam, dead center on top of the work, it'll be a dot.
Yeah.
Off to the edge, it'll be an ellipse.
Yeah. So you're right. But as long as you see the dot or the ellipse, you know you're still on the, you still got to go. Once that ellipse starts to go off the side, maybe when it's halfway off, then stop.
I was thinking Jack's did that.
It does.
When you got right to that thickness.
Okay, we reached our quitting time. I know Bob had brought some tools too. To get to. Does anybody else bring anything we didn't get to? We couldn't have another one of these sessions if you enjoyed this.
Yeah, this is a great idea. I heard some people talk about a workshop. Could we set it up on like on a Saturday where we had the regular class in the morning to deal with this, and then stay afterward and do it? Is there anything that we can physically do inside of here? Or are we missing
As far as what?
Trying to make some of the tools?
Well, we got, I think it's in October, or no, August something. Bob's got Bob's schedule.
That's a
But I
demo
gotta
or
check, I need to check
demo
with
and a
Dave.
workshop?
I don't know.
I need to check
You're
with
talking
Dave.
workshop, not demo, right?
Yeah, I was talking about, talk
Making
about here is
stuff.
great, but then you go home and go, how do I do that?
Talking about making stuff.
Yeah, they actually put some make it workshop.
E-torches and stuff like that.
Yeah, we got I've got Bob scheduled for, I think it's August or September, somewhere in there, where he's actually going to demo making the tools, but I got to check with Dave to see if he minds having a torch in here.
Now, is that going to be Thursday night or Saturday?
No, it's Thursday night.
Well, obviously, that's an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, I was
But we
thinking
could
it was on
do,
Saturday.